It's Pete from Cheap Homesteading, and today I just wanted to make a little video kind of giving you guys an update on the garden. You know, at the beginning of the year, I had great hopes. I am going to keep this garden weed-free, and I had the plan. I kept going, and I kept it pretty good till just a little bit before my holidays. It always falls apart during my holidays. I don't know if it's just when the weeds get really, really bad, or it's just that, anyways, it just turns out that around my holidays is when it goes bad. So I started my plants in the greenhouse. They did good. My cucumbers were the only thing that I couldn't keep growing. They just seemed to have some stem rot or something. I don't know what it is, but they would just die. The cucumbers didn't work good, but everything else started good. So I disked the garden late because my tractor, the engine went out on it. And then by the time I got the Kubota, I disked it. And it did a great job. We got it going, and I planted my potatoes, and I planted everything in the garden. And normally I would disc it earlier, let the weeds kind of sprout a little bit, and then disc it again, and then you don't have as many weeds. So I planted my whole garden, and the weeds were pretty bad, so I kept rototilling it. I kept weeding it, and it was looking pretty good until about just before my holidays. It was starting to fall apart a little bit before then. And it just kind of got out of hand. So when I came back from my holidays, it was bad. When I planted everything was going good, but then I couldn't get my carrots to sprout. I couldn't get my turnips to sprout. I couldn't get a lot of it just to sprout. And I don't know if it was because it was a colder beginning to the year and a lot of rain. You would think a lot of rain would work. So I replanted some turnips and some carrots and some beets. And then they did come up the second time, and then my tomato plants were planted. I kept rototilling around them. I bought cages. I thought I'm gonna put the cages around them and they're gonna keep them up, but down there now, they all just fell over with the weight of the fruit. So I gotta put some stakes in with those cages, I guess. This year is pretty much a write-off, except the fact that I am gonna get good potatoes, and I'm gonna get a pretty good crop out of it. I already have a lot in the freezer with the tomatoes, so I think this is gonna work good. But man, I think my wife thinks that the garden is the eyesore of the community. She's kind of a little embarrassed about it. And it got a little out of hand. So today we're gonna pull some tomatoes, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of an update on the garden. Don't judge me, the garden just went out of hand. But I wanted to show you what an organic garden looks like, and you know, an organic garden that someone can't keep ahead of the weeds. So that's what happened to mine. So I'm gonna show you. So this is what the garden looks like. It is a huge weedy mess. This is where the potatoes are. So there's 5 rows of potatoes. I kept the weeds down the whole time they were growing, so we should have a good crop of potatoes in here. It's just there is 1 ton of weeds. So we come over here, and here is my turnips. And they actually did very, very well. So I'm gonna try to do something with them. The turnips did good on the second plant. We've got my carrots start growing. I don't even know if there's any carrot down there, but they look okay. My tomatoes had a real problem. I put some cages, and then the cages fell over, and then some rotted on the bottom, some had blossom and rot. So it's just been a real battle trying to get the tomatoes. I probably tend to try to do too much, and I don't have enough time to do it. So a lot of this is my fault, but I thought I am going to show you guys what happened. So here is my cabbages. The weird thing is all the cabbages didn't do well over here, and as it goes down they get better and better. So I got some here. This is a small one. It's still growing. Some of these I need to start cutting them, pulling them, because I let a few go to waste. That one is still good. This one's good. That one's good. That one's good. And there is some Brussels sprouts that are starting here. Okay, so that is what the garden looks like. It looks absolutely horrendous. You know, every year I kind of get this hope that I'm going to have a great garden. and it's a little discouraging, but it's kind of my own fault. I try to do too much. So I'm gonna go get a bushel basket, and we'll pull some tomatoes that are good, and I can throw them in the freezer. We put about another bushel in the freezer. I think that's almost gonna be enough for the amount of tomatoes we need. So even though a bunch wasted, I should have a good amount in the freezer. And then when I dig up my potatoes, I know there's gonna be tons of potatoes. So I think we're gonna be doing good. It's just a little frustrating, you know? We're gonna pick as much of the good ones as I can find. Really, if I get a half a bushel, will be all I really need for this year. I don't need a ton of tomatoes. So what we do is basically freeze them whole. Saves a lot, so you don't actually have to can it, which really does save a lot. I don't need a whole lot more for this year. I've already froze a lot. I really overdid the tomatoes and I couldn't keep ahead of them. Even though there's quite a bit of waste, I got enough tomatoes for my family. So I think that's going to be good. We'll just keep going along. I really messed up this year. There's a lot of them that are rotten. So we're just gonna keep picking. Part of the issue is the cages I bought to hold them up. They didn't hold them up, so a bunch fell down and they ended up rotting, which is kind of unfortunate. The other part of it is some of it had like blossom end rot. The ones that I actually put eggshells around the base didn't have it as bad, so I just never got around to all the tomato plants. So there, you know what, if I didn't plant this many, I wouldn't have got as much. It is kind of unfortunate that I wasted so much though this year. Hopefully next year I can be a little better at it than this. Tonight I'll try to get most of the tomatoes that are good, and then tomorrow we'll try to get some of the cabbages and start on my sauerkraut. So there you go. You know what? We got 1 bushel of tomatoes already in the freezer. I tend to freeze them. I used to try to can them, but that's a lot of work and I just don't have enough time to do that. So I already processed 1 bushel of tomatoes. This is the second one. We probably can pick another bushel out of there. There's a lot of green ones still that I can get. A lot wasted, which I feel bad about, but you know, you can only do what you can do. And because I had that many, I end up with this much. So I think it's a good thing. So after that, we're gonna get the turnips, the potatoes, a lot of the root vegetables dug up, and then we can maybe work up the garden and make it look a little better. Just make it look a little cleaner. So that is what's going to happen in the next little bit between bringing in wood and trying to fix my tractor. There's just a lot of stuff happening. So that's about enough for today. You guys have a good one.